Hello. First of all, I want to say happy Halloween. I hope you're all having a great holiday, and I know the Maniac Cop movies are not exactly Halloween-themed horror films, but I initially wanted to get these Maniac Cop reviews done before Halloween because I already had some videos planned for today, but unfortunately, real life kind of got in the way of me doing these videos, so I'm doing this Maniac Cop 3 review now, and I'm going to do some of the videos I had planned for today later on, even though it will be after Halloween. But yeah, this review is on Maniac Cop 3, Badge of Silence. Now this, of course, is the third film in the Maniac Cop series. The first two films, of course, being 1988's Maniac Cop and then 1990's Maniac Cop 2. Now, Maniac Cop 3 is considered by many, William Lustig included, to be the worst of the Maniac Cop films, but I personally disagree. I actually really liked this movie. Now, I do think it's the weakest of the series, but I still thought this was a pretty good film. Now, while I do like this movie, I understand why William Lustig and Larry Cohen don't like this movie, because this film had a very troubled production. Now, William Lustig is credited as the director of this movie, however, a lot of the movie is actually directed by the producer. I forgot whether William Lustig was fired or if he just sort of quit. Like, basically, William Lustig and Larry Cohen, the writer of the movie, they originally wanted the main character of this movie to be black, but the producers thought that a movie with a black hero wouldn't sell in certain foreign countries. So, they ended up bringing back Robert Davi's character, Sean McKinney, from Part 2 in this movie. Now, I'm actually glad that they brought that character back because I really do like that character. At the same time, though, it is really fucked up the reason they brought him back, just because the producers didn't want a black man to be the main character. When you really stop to think about it, that is kind of fucked up, but I am glad that they brought the Sean McKinney character back because once again, I really did like that character, but I do sort of wish that Lustig and Cohen could have at least went with some of their original idea. So basically, Larry Cohen had to rewrite the entire script from scratch, which he was not happy about, and according to one story I heard, the producer called him up while he was driving, and Larry Cohen was basically telling the producer to just write the script himself, and he was like plotting out this new script while he was driving. I think there are other reasons as well why William Lustig and Larry Cohen don't like this movie, but I think the main reason was they were just freaking peeved that they had to rewrite the entire script for which I'll say it is kind of a bullshit reason. But yeah, William Lustig, I forgot whether he was fired or if he just quit, but a lot of the movie was actually directed by the producer. And I was listening to an interview with Lustig, and he actually said that he hasn't even seen the whole thing of this movie. But despite the production problems, I personally do really like Maniac Cop 3, but once again, I understand why the director and the writer don't like this movie because of all the production problems. Now, Maniac Cop 3, in a lot of ways, is sort of a modern-day retelling of The Bride of Frankenstein. Now, the plot of Maniac Cop 3 is it's set sometime after the events of Maniac Cop 2, and basically, in the beginning of the movie, Matt Cordell is brought back from the dead by a voodoo priest, and it turns out that even though Matt Cordell's name was cleared at the end of the previous movie, for some reason his spirit is still unable to move on, which allowed the voodoo priest to bring him back to life. Now, the movie starts following this cop named Kate Sullivan, who is very similar to Matt Cordell in a lot of ways, in the sense that she's one of those shoot first and ask questions later kind of cops, but she's still a good person. But what happens is, towards the beginning of the movie, Kate is involved in this shootout between her and this drug addict at this pharmacy, and she ends up getting shot and ends up falling into a coma. Now, in the movie, these sleazy reporters were recording all of this, and they end up doctoring the footage to make it look like she's the bad guy. So, not only is she in a coma and fighting for her life, but now her name is being disgraced. Now, in the movie, you find out that Matt Cordell wants a companion, so he wants this voodoo priest to use his magic to condemn Kate's soul to the same fate that he's suffering. Now, in the movie, Sean McKinney, the main character of the previous film, in the movie you find out that he's been friends with Kate for years, and Kate is almost like a little sister to him, and what happens is he's now trying to stop Cordell while also trying to clear Kate's name. And that's the basic plotline of Maniac Cop 3. But yeah, I enjoy Maniac Cop 3. I do think it's the weakest of the series, but I still think it's a pretty decent movie. And honestly, even though I know it had a lot of production problems, I really don't notice that in the film. I honestly think it's a pretty solid conclusion to this trilogy. Now, once again, in the movie, Robert Davi returns as the character of Sean McKinney, and personally, I'm actually really glad that he came back, because that shows that there's a real continuity to this series. At the same time, I understand why William Lustig did not want to bring this character back, because William Lustig felt like this character's story was wrapped up in the second film. At the same time, though, I'm glad that he came back, but I do sort of wish that William Lustig and Larry Cohen could have at least had maybe another main character who was this black man that they wanted, and I do think it's ridiculous the reason why the producers didn't want a black man as the main character. But once again, I liked that Robert Davi came back in this movie, and I almost would have liked to have seen a fourth Maniac Cop movie with this character to really establish this guy as sort of like the official hero of the Maniac Cop movies. I think that would have been really cool if, like, the character of Sean McKinney would have been sort of like the Sam Loomis to Matt Cordell's Michael Myers, or the Tommy Jarvis to Matt Cordell's Jason Voorhees, or the Van Helsing to Matt Cordell's Dracula. I think that would have been really cool. Now, in the movie, Jackie Earle Haley plays the drug addict who shoots Kate, and he almost steals this movie from the rest of the cast. Like, he was great in this movie, and his character was nice and over the top. But yeah, I like Maniac Cop 3. I don't think it's perfect by any means, and I do think it's the weakest of the series, but it's still a pretty good movie, and I definitely recommend it, but I recommend the first two movies more. Now, this was the final film of the Maniac Cop series, and I think the three films form a pretty solid trilogy, and I'm kind of glad that there wasn't a fourth one. At the same time, though, once again, I think that would have been kind of cool if they did do a fourth one with Robert Davi's character coming back. Once again, officially establishing him as sort of like the hero of this series, but at the same time, it kind of ended where it needed to end. Now, over the years, there has been talks of a Maniac Cop 4, but it never happened, and unfortunately, Robert Sidar, who plays Matt Cordell, is no longer with us, so they really can't do another sequel now, but there has been talks of a Maniac Cop remake, and apparently Nicholas Winding Refn is going to be producing this remake, so that would be really interesting to see how this remake turns out. But yeah, those were my reviews on the Maniac Cop movies. Now, I am going to be doing one more thing for Horror Month, and that will be a retrospective on the Halloween franchise. Even though the video will be posted after Halloween, that is going to be my next video.